Will Hamas disarm? Will this peace hold? Will Gaza get uninterrupted food, medical aid, all the supplies that it requires? We have voices from Israel and Palestine joining us on this special broadcast. I first want to cut across to Major Dan Pfefferman, National Security Analyst and Intelligence Officer who joins us from Jerusalem. Major Dan is a reservist. Welcome on the show, sir. Is the ceasefire and the return of all remaining hostages the dawn of the golden era for Israel and West Asia, as President Trump said?
Thanks for having me on. This is a huge day for us in Israel, really for the region, and I think for all democracies and for societies that value life and peace. The nightmare that began 2 years ago on the Jewish calendar today, 2 years and a week ago on the Western calendar, are over, and the last of the living hostages have been returned home. The giant wound that has been open and painful for this country for the last 2 years can begin to heal, and it's going to be a slow healing process. President Trump and the United States played an absolutely critical role, the critical role, in brokering this ceasefire. There's one key element, though, that changes it from a ceasefire into the wide-ranging, hopeful long-term peace deal that has been pushed by both President Trump and by Prime Minister Netanyahu, and that is Hamas doesn't seem to be on board. And so what you're going to have to see in the coming weeks and months, and hopefully not longer, is a coordinated and concerted and tenacious effort to ensure that Hamas is actually demilitarized, that Hamas is actually ousted from power and doesn't just change its name and find a way to maintain a hold of the Gaza Strip. And then, of course, you have to have a deep de-radicalization process of the entire Gaza Strip and all Palestinian entities. These are areas.
Okay. Major Dan, give me a moment. I quickly want to cut across to Tel Aviv. Guy Azrael is the diplomatic correspondent of I-24 News, joins us on this broadcast. Guy, welcome. Is Israel relieved today with all the hostages back home and safe? And is there hope that this peace would be enduring, the ceasefire would be enduring?
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me. First of all, I would just like to clarify that Israel did receive all its 20 living hostages out of 48, and yet to receive the remaining fallen hostages. I'm hearing just as we speak that 2 or 4 of the bodies are being transferred right now. But I would also remind you and the viewers that the deadline to return all the hostages has expired at noon, just over 6 hours ago here in Israel, and Hamas did not stand to its word. Now, you mentioned the word peace, and that is a very elusive and complicated term. I don't think that anyone here in Israel has expectations of peace with Gaza, but a situation of a ceasefire like we're seeing today is certainly possible should the conditions that Israel has put on the table actually be fulfilled. And that is the demilitarization of the Gaza Strip, Hamas disarming itself, giving up its weapons, and also the de-radicalization of the Gaza Strip. These would contribute to perhaps a prospect of peace in the future. But for now, if you want to prevent any further violence, this is what you need to do in order to stop Hamas,
yes,
which is a jihadist organization who's looking to annihilate the state of Israel or hurt Israel as much as it can. And we're hearing statements from Hamas.
Are there any indications, Guy, are there any indications by when will all the bodies be returned, and by when will all the prisoners from Israel be returned to Gaza?
Yeah, so here's the complication. According to the agreement, Israel is only supposed to release the Palestinian prisoners once all Israeli hostages are being returned. However, the situation is such that Israel only received the 20 living hostages and has already freed all the Palestinian prisoners that were said to be freed as part of this deal, while the fallen hostages, the bodies, have yet to be returned. And this is a problem for Israel right now that it will need to solve with the US, with the negotiators, with the supervising mechanism over this deal to see how do we persuade Hamas to stand up to its word. And I would say this is just the first phase of the bigger Trump plan. And if Hamas does not stand to his word, even to the slightest in this sense, already on the last day of the deadline, I'm not sure that's a very positive prospect for the future. In any case, there are intensive conversations right now in order to understand how to change this situation moving forward. And as we speak, President Trump is now in Sharm el-Sheikh with President Sisi, already declaring that they've started the negotiations for the second phase of his deal.
But for the second phase to commence, the first phase has to be completed. If Hamas delays or does not return all the remaining mortal remains, the Israelis who were killed in custody of Hamas, what is Israel expected to do? Is there any word on what Israel's strategy is? Are supplies also, to Gaza, have they resumed, Guy?
I believe that they have, yes. And that is a good point because when it comes to the release of the Palestinian prisoners, as we mentioned, that has already been done. So perhaps that could be considered as one of the possible punishments on Hamas until it does stand up to its word and releases all the bodies. But Israel would not do this right now unilaterally. It would only do this with the support of the US and the supervising mechanism, as obviously this is a very fragile situation. Israel wants to stand up to its part of the deal, certainly when it comes to the ceasefire and to the allowing of aid into the strip. And nonetheless, it cannot obviously accept this situation in which Hamas just pretends as if he's unable to fulfill his part of the deal. This deal was signed under the responsibility of Hamas claiming that it can stand up to its word. And what we're seeing right now is very far from that.
Guy Azrael, for joining me here on India Today. Many thanks. We'll track that story very closely. I now want to come back to Major Dan. Major Dan, given the current situation, do you think the ceasefire will hold? How will the guarantors ensure, one, all bodies are returned, two, Hamas disarms and relinquishes control of power?
Every public statement I've seen so far from Hamas officials tells me that they are not going to abide by this and they don't accept it. Hamas has wanted from day one a ceasefire agreement that simply ends the war and allows them to maintain power. They launched the war with a vision of an ongoing generational struggle to destroy Israel and take over the region. And so for them, their maximal goal is to achieve some kind of wound on Israel, pressure using PR and manipulation, etc., the radicalization of global public opinion, to pressure Israel to agree to a ceasefire, and then to come back and launch in another year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is. There was a ceasefire in place on October the 6th, 2023, that Hamas broke for its own purposes. And so I haven't seen any kind of public indication by Hamas leaders that they're actually willing to accept the deeper terms of this deal. And so either there are elements that have not been reported to the public that maybe they say one thing publicly, but they're committing to it to their Qatari and Turkish sponsors, or they're going to have to be forced into compliance by some kind of pan-Arab and international force that was
Major
also
Dan,
discussed
give me
in
a
the
moment.